Imagine for a second that you are looking at two completely identical houses. Like they have the exact same brick exterior, the same square footage, and, the same renovated kitchen.
Right, the exact same roof, everything.
Yeah, everything. But one of these houses costs 30% more than the other. And the reason has literally nothing to do with the house itself. It has everything to do with a practically invisible line drawn on a city planner's map a decade ago.
It's the ultimate invisible hand of the housing market, really. I mean, we spend so much time agonizing over countertop materials or,
Oh, yeah.
the size of a backyard.
Oh, totally.
But the true value of property is almost entirely dictated by its geographical coordinates within a municipal matrix.
And that's exactly our mission for this deep dive. We are looking at this fascinating breakdown sourced from Wikiresidence.ca and Infodrone.ca, and it's titled, "We Are All Real Estate Investors."
Yes, a very fitting title.
Our goal today is to basically decode these hidden geographic rules that dictate property values. And the source material uses Montreal as its laboratory, but the psychological and economic lessons here, they apply to almost any major city.
Absolutely, the mechanics are universal.
Right, because whether you are listening to this to just find a place to rent or buying your first home or maybe looking decades down the line to help your kids get into the market, you are playing the real estate game. Resale value is never just like some minor detail you can brush off.
But that is the core thesis we have to establish right away. There's this pervasive myth that investing is something only done by developers in tailored suits.
Yeah, the big Wall Street types.
Exactly. But the reality is that the moment you sign a lease or a mortgage, you are an investor. You are placing a massive financial bet on the future desirability of a specific patch of dirt.
Which is terrifying when you put it like that.
It can be. And the market is constantly evaluating that patch of dirt based on a very strict set of geographic criteria.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I think we need a total mindset shift when it comes to homeownership. Buying a home isn't just buying a shelter anymore. It's essentially like buying a blue chip stock that you also happen to live inside.
I love that analogy.
Right, like you get to enjoy the daily dividends, which is, the roof over your head, the cozy living room, raising your family, but you absolutely have to monitor the stock's performance based on external market forces. You can't just ignore the balance sheet.
That is a highly effective way to conceptualize it.
Yeah.
You're living inside an active financial asset. And when we examine the market forces acting on that asset, well, the data reveals a very clear hierarchy of value.
So what's at the top?
Historically, people understood that a nice view added value. But today, the game has fundamentally changed. The proximity to modern infrastructure is completely redefining the practical day-to-day value of a property.
And the source material has actually quantified this, right? Identifying 7 distinct geographic premiums that drive resale value.
Yes, 7 specific criteria.
And if we are treating this house like a blue chip stock, we have to start with the forces that trigger the most massive fluctuations in price, like the absolute heavy hitters.
The big ones, yeah.
So the first one the data points to is proximity to shorelines. In the context of Montreal, being on the island's shoreline commands an estimated premium of plus 20 to 30%. 30%.
Wow.
That is an astronomical jump just to be near the water.
It is staggering, but when you break down the mechanics of urban density, it becomes perfectly logical. Access to water, or even unimpeded panoramic views of it, represents the ultimate urban luxury.
Because it's rare.
Exactly. It provides an absolute guarantee of rarity. Think about how cities grow. They build upward and outward. But if your backyard faces a major river, you possess something that money usually cannot buy in a metropolis.
A guarantee that a developer will never build a 40-story high-rise directly behind you?
Precisely. It's the ultimate unblockable view.
So you aren't just paying for the aesthetic of the water, you're essentially paying for the zoning guarantee that your privacy is permanent.
Exactly. The text emphasizes that shorelines offer tranquility. In an increasingly noisy, dense urban environment, true silence and open sky are incredibly scarce resources.
Yeah, for sure.
So buyers are willing to pay that massive 30% premium to secure a permanent psychological escape valve from the city right on their own property.
So water is the ultimate escape. But then the data pivots to the exact opposite extreme. The next massive premium, sitting at an extra 10 to 15%, is transit.
Right, the connection side of things.
Yeah, specifically things like Montreal's new automated light rail system, the REM, the classic metro subway, or those XO commuter trains. The document explicitly says par-free mobility is king.
It really is.
But here's where I want to push back a little because the source stresses that this premium specifically applies if you are within a 10-minute walk of the station. Is that literal 10-minute rule actually a hard line?
It is, yes.
Because it seems wild to think that if I live, say, an 11-minute walk away, the market suddenly punishes my property value, like it's just 1 minute.
What's fascinating here is the behavioral economics behind that specific time limit. That 10-minute threshold is not just, a random number pulled out of thin air by a real estate agent.
Right.
It is the widely recognized, heavily researched limit of human pedestrian tolerance for a daily repeated commute.
Wait, really? Just 10 minutes?
Just 10 minutes. Think about the cognitive load of a daily routine, especially when you factor in carrying heavy groceries, wrangling children, or dealing with February snowstorms.
Oh, yeah, trudging through the snow.
Exactly.
Hmm.
At 5 to 8 minutes, the walk feels like a breeze. It's just a quick stroll. At 10 minutes, it's manageable. But at 12, 15, or 18 minutes, the psychological friction of that walk becomes a daily burden.
And what happens when a commute becomes a burden?
People start choosing to drive to the station instead.
And the moment they choose to drive, the entire financial benefit collapses.
Precisely. If the walk is too long, you have to buy a car. The moment you need a car, well, you are paying for the vehicle depreciation, the insurance, the gas, and the parking at the transit station.
That adds up so fast.
It does. The 10 to 15% premium you see for homes within that tight 10-minute radius is literally buyers calculating the lifetime cost of owning a vehicle and shifting those exact funds directly into their mortgage budget instead.
Wow.
They are buying the mathematical reality of a car-free life.
That makes so much sense. So when you look at these two massive geographic premiums, the water and the transit, it's like buyers are pulling in two totally opposite directions.
Very true.
You either want to be completely off the grid, staring at a duck on a completely silent river, or you want to be completely 100% plugged into the urban grid so you never have to sit in traffic again. Total isolation or total connection.
That is the modern urban dichotomy, yes.
Yep.
And those are the luxury premiums. But a transit station is fundamentally just a conduit.
Right. It has to lead somewhere.
Exactly. It is only valuable if it actually connects you to something you need. Which brings us to the next tier of the data, the factors that create an unshakable, crash-proof foundation of demand for a neighborhood.
The anchor institutions. Which brings us to the third geographic criterion, schools and institutions carrying a 5 to 10% premium. The source material calls this an absolute non-negotiable for families.
It's a huge driver.
But so what does this all mean for me? I mean, I don't have kids. Why should a young professional or a retiree care about paying a 10% premium just to live near a high school they will literally never set foot in?
Because you aren't buying the school for yourself. You are buying the desperation of the next buyer.
Oh, wow.
Real estate markets fluctuate,
Yeah.
interest rates rise, economic recessions hit, and luxury properties can sit on the market for months. But the biological imperative of parents wanting to place their children in top-tier educational districts, that does not respond to recessions.
It's like buying a real estate insurance policy.
That is a perfect way to look at it. When you purchase a property near a highly rated school or a major cultural institution, you are buying into a guaranteed, self-replenishing demographic pipeline.
Because there's always going to be new parents.
Every single year, without fail, a new cohort of families needs to move into that specific geographic zone before the September semester starts. It provides built-in liquidity for your asset.
So when you eventually go to sell, you are guaranteed a pool of highly motivated buyers who literally must buy in your neighborhood.
Exactly.
That is incredibly strategic. And it leads right into the next foundational element of a neighborhood, which is essential shops. The data shows this adds a 3 to 7% premium.
With the famous walk score.
Yeah, exactly. The source material points out that the sheer convenience of being able to walk to buy groceries or stroll over to a local pharmacy is a major quantifiable asset.
It goes back to that concept of friction we discussed with the transit stations. A high walk score effectively expands your living space out into the neighborhood.
Oh, I like that. How do you mean?
Think about the modern condominium. Square footage is shrinking. But your personal pantry doesn't need to be massive if there is a fresh grocery store 2 blocks away. That store essentially functions as your walk-in refrigerator.
Right. It's that exact feeling of realizing you forgot milk for your morning coffee. In a low walk score suburb, that forgotten milk is a 20-minute ordeal.
You have to find your keys, start the car.
Yeah, sit at traffic lights, fight for a spot in a massive asphalt parking lot, and drive back. In a high walk score neighborhood, it's a 5-minute round trip on foot. You don't even have to put on a heavy coat.
And buyers are mathematically proving they will pay up to 7% more for that frictionless existence. It is the monetization of reclaimed time.
Okay, so we've covered the extremes of water and transit, and we've covered the bare necessities of schools and groceries. Now, the data shows that once those basic survival and commuting needs are met, modern buyers are willing to pay extra for pure well-being.
The lifestyle bumps.
Right. These final three criteria might seem mathematically smaller on paper, but they add up to create highly targeted lifestyle magnets. First up is parks and dog parks, which sit at a 2 to 5% premium.
Yes, and the document explicitly notes that urban green spaces are increasingly valued to make daily life pleasant, especially in a post-pandemic world.
Right, because before, a nearby park was often viewed as just a nice aesthetic bonus.
Exactly. But the pandemic served as a massive psychological reset for urban dwellers. Today, the market treats immediate access to green space as essential mental health infrastructure. Being trapped in an apartment for months really rewired how people value the space immediately outside their front door.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. When I look at these numbers side by side, it reveals a pretty dark truth about human nature.
Oh, how so?
Well, shared nature, like a beautiful public park or a massive community dog park, only adds a maximum 5% premium. But exclusive nature, like that private shoreline view we talked about earlier, adds up to 30%.
I see your point.
It essentially proves that humans like trees and water, but we are willing to pay an astronomical, massive premium to ensure nobody else is allowed to look at our trees and water. We love nature, but we love keeping other people out of our nature even more.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of real estate economics, it perfectly illustrates the hierarchy of human desires.
Right.
Shared public amenities provide utility, and people will pay a modest premium for that utility. But exclusive amenities provide status, privacy, and irreplaceable scarcity. And scarcity is always what drives the steepest premiums.
Still, a 5% bump is nothing to sneeze at when we are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Early now.
And it gets even more specific. The next factor is hospitals and local community health clinics, which in Quebec are known as CLSCs. Living near these adds a 1 to 4% premium.
Yes, the medical infrastructure.
The source notes this provides obvious peace of mind for retirees, but it also points out a totally different angle. It acts as a massive rental magnet for healthcare professionals.
This is a brilliant example of a double demand generator. When you look at a property near a major medical center, you are looking at a hyper-stable microeconomy.
Because of the staff and the patients.
Exactly. On one hand, you have an aging population who wants to age in place with the security of immediate emergency care.
Right, the peace of mind.
Yes. But on the flip side, you have a constant influx of traveling nurses, medical residents, and hospital administrators.
That makes total sense.
These are individuals who work grueling 12 to 14-hour shifts. They have zero desire to commute an hour home after a traumatic shift in an ER. They are generally high-income, reliable renters who actively seek out housing within walking distance of the hospital.
So as an investor, a hospital provides both a stable buyer pool and a premium renter pool.
Precisely.
And the final piece of the geographic puzzle is bike paths, adding a 1 to 3% premium. The text identifies this as a lifestyle bonus specifically geared toward young professionals and active families.
Yes, active transit.
So if we step back and look at these last three factors, parks, hospitals, and bike paths, they aren't just random bumps in value. They are incredibly specific demographic magnets.
Precisely. They allow you to micro-target your investment. If you buy a property surrounded by extensive bike networks and trendy dog parks, well, you are actively selecting young, active professionals as your future buyers.
And if you buy near a hospital, you are targeting medical staff and retirees.
Exactly. You aren't just buying a location. You are curating your future buyer profile based on the infrastructure around you.
Okay, so let's say I'm holding a map of my city right now. I've got my highlighters out. I'm feeling like a real estate genius, you know.
Okay, paint the picture.
I'm coloring the shorelines in blue, the transit stations in red, the schools in yellow, marking the hospitals and the bike paths. I know exactly what creates value. But here is the massive, unavoidable roadblock for the average person listening to this.
The cost.
Yeah, the cost. Buying a property that already possesses all of these maximum premiums is completely unaffordable. If you find a house on the water, a 5-minute walk from a light rail station, 2 blocks from a top-tier school, right next to a grocery store, and a bike path, that house costs millions of dollars.
It absolutely does.
The premiums are already baked into the price. The puzzle is already finished. So how does an average person with an average budget actually use this information?
That is the fundamental challenge of real estate. If you want the finished product, you have to pay the finished price. To utilize this data without a massive budget, you have to completely change your strategy.
Right.
You have to learn how to manipulate time.
The investor's secret. The document lays this out so beautifully. The ultimate trick of seasoned investors isn't having the most money, it's betting on growth potential.
Yes.
Instead of buying finished neighborhoods where the premiums are maxed out, you have to look for developing areas before the infrastructure is actually built.
It is a strategy of chronological arbitrage. The source material advises investors to hunt for strong signals of future municipal development.
Like what?
This could be the announcement of a new transit line, an urban revitalization plan from the city council, or maybe the planned extension of a regional bike path network.
Right.
The mathematical goal is simple. You buy the property at today's unimproved price. You wait for the city to build the infrastructure around you, and then you capture tomorrow's location premium.
It's basically like buying a concert ticket to see a local band right before they win a Grammy and become famous. You don't buy an established farm where the apples are already growing because that's too expensive.
Exactly.
You buy a completely empty patch of dirt, but you only buy it because you saw the city planners planting apple seeds right next door. You know it's going to take 5 years for the trees to grow, but when they do, your empty patch of dirt is suddenly worth a fortune. You're trying to spot the next big thing. You have to read the tea leaves of city planning to figure out where that magical 10-minute transit radius is going to pop up in the future.
This raises an important question, however, and it is a question of risk management. Because betting on the future requires a tremendous amount of critical thinking.
Oh, for sure.
If municipal announcements are the strong signals we are supposed to rely on, how do you ensure you are reading those signals correctly? History is absolutely littered with grand urban development plans, monorails, sprawling parklands, revolutionary transit hubs that were announced with incredible fanfare by politicians.
Only to be delayed by decades, significantly downsized, or canceled entirely due to budget deficits.
Exactly.
Oh man, that is the terrifying flip side of time travel. You jump to the future expecting a shiny new train station that will boost your property value by 15%, and you arrive to find an empty dirt lot full of weeds because the city ran out of money.
It happens all the time.
So how do you avoid getting trapped holding a property waiting for a future that never arrives?
You have to differentiate between a political vision and a funded mandate. You cannot simply listen to the marketing pitches of real estate agents who promise a subway station is coming soon.
So what do you look for?
You have to actually look at municipal budgets. Has land been expropriated? Have the construction contracts been awarded? Are there actual shovels in the ground?
You want proof.
Yes. You want to buy the rumor to get the low price, but you must verify that the reality is legally and financially in motion before you risk your capital.
You really have to do your homework. You can't just be an accidental investor. You have to be an active, educated one.
Precisely.
Let's take a breath and recap this incredible journey we've just been on. We started by looking at a standard city map, and we've completely decoded the matrix underneath it. We explored the 7 hidden geographic criteria that act as the gears of property valuation.
Structural mechanics.
Right. We started with the heavy hitters, the massive 20 to 30% luxury premium of unblockable shorelines, and the behavioral economics behind the 10-minute transit walk that saves you the crushing cost of a car.
Then the anchors.
Yeah, we moved to the anchor institutions, uncovering how schools act as a bulletproof insurance policy against market crashes, and how walkability literally expands your living space. We explored the targeted lifestyle bumps, the parks, the hospitals, the bike paths that allow you to curate your specific demographic of future buyers.
And finally, the time factor.
Exactly. We cracked the seasoned investor's secret, manipulating time by hunting for funded municipal infrastructure so you can capture tomorrow's premiums at today's prices. It really does completely change the way you navigate a city.
It forces you to stop looking at the superficial aesthetics of a neighborhood and start analyzing the structural mechanics of its economy. But before we conclude, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final, somewhat provocative thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've just discussed how to act like a seasoned investor by aggressively hunting for early municipal announcements about transit lines and bike paths to find those hidden gems.
Right.
But if the core thesis of this document is true, that everyone is waking up to the fact that they are real estate investors, what happens to the market mechanics?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
If thousands of everyday people start hunting for these early signals simultaneously, actively reading city council budgets and tracking zoning changes, does the advantage disappear?
That's a great point.
If everyone is racing to buy the property near the future transit station, won't those future premiums eventually just get aggressively priced into the market today? If the entire public is looking for the hidden gem, does the very concept of a hidden real estate gem eventually cease to exist?
Wow, that is the perfect question to leave hanging in the air. If everybody knows the seeds have been planted, the empty dirt suddenly costs as much as the full orchard anyway. It brings us right back to the new reality we established at the start. Buying a home is buying a blue chip stock that you sleep in. You absolutely need to enjoy your living room, but you can never, ever stop paying attention to the invisible lines being drawn on the map outside your front door.